Talking about emotions and motivation, there's one key term for you to remember, and that is affect. A-F-F-E-C-T. It's your experience of feeling or emotion. It's the whole experience, meaning your interpretation of it as well. There are two components to this affect. It's the emotion and then the motivation. Arousal is the experience of our bodily responses. So when your heart rate increases, that's arousal. When your breathing increases, that's arousal. So your body physically responds to the emotion or to the situation, and that helps you to interpret that emotion. So the emotion is both your mental and your physiological or your physical state that directs your attention and guides your behavior. So it's the mental process as well as the physical response that directs attention and guides behavior. That's emotion. Motivation, on the other hand, is the driving force that initiates or directs behavior. So the motivation is what gets you started, and the emotion is your experience of it. Okay? So my motivation might be that I'm hungry, and my emotion afterwards is either that I'm satisfied with what I ate, or it wasn't quite what I expected, or wasn't really what I was hungry for, so I'm not hungry, but I'm not really satisfied either. That's your emotion. Okay? Motivation is the driving force. The word drives. Okay? Goals. My goal is to not be hungry anymore. Or my goal is to save up and buy a new car, so my motivation that serves as my motivation to work the extra hours. And then my emotion is that feeling of satisfaction or frustration or disappointment as a result of my action trying to satisfy my motivation. Okay? Now, there are 6 basic emotions that are the same across cultures. They don't have to be learned. And they are these: anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. Those are the 6 basic emotions that nobody has to be taught. We know these. And the thalamus is the part of the brain responsible for helping you respond to them. Now the secondary emotions, let's take happiness. What if I'm ecstatic? That's a culturally based emotion. So I learned that. I learned that there was a different level of happy, higher level of happy. Okay? Or sadness. I'm depressed. That's cultural. Okay? So know that there are 6 basic emotions, and then all the emotions similar to those are secondary emotions, and they are culturally based. The secondary emotions also are processed through the frontal lobes of your cortex. They involve more interpretation. They're not a reaction like the 6 basics are. They involve my interpretation. I have to give them meaning to use those terms or to experience those feelings. Now there are 3 theories of emotions, and all of them are trying to decide, do I experience my emotion first or my physical arousal first? The Cannon-Bard theory says I experience them at the same time. It is the 2 working in tandem together that causes me to experience an affect. Remember, the experience of feeling or emotion. James Lang says no, we experience our physical arousal first, and then we determine which emotion that was. Well, my problem with that is that if my heart rate increases, how many different emotions could that be indicating? I could be scared, but I also could be really excited. The 2-factor theory says that we experience arousal, And we interpret that arousal, cognitive appraisal, by the context or using the context, and therefore we create meaning or develop our emotion. This lends us to the possibility of a misattribution of arousal, meaning that we misinterpret it. So somebody comes up behind you and makes a loud noise and scares you. You jump, and then you're like, oh, I didn't know it was just you. You misinterpreted that arousal. Your initial arousal was an experience of fear, but once you knew who it was, then you know they were just playing. Okay? Something else to think about are your nonverbal communication skills. How do the term proxemics, how do you use personal space to convey your emotions? If you're really excited and you want to share some good information with somebody, you generally get a little bit closer. You're excited, you're telling them all about it, giving each other a high five, your use of proxemics. Okay? If you have bad news, you might stand a little further back because you're not sure how they're going to react. Okay, so you've kind of braced yourself for the worst. Your use of proxemics helps others to determine what your emotion is. Okay? Your body appearance, alterations of the body. Things like tattoos or piercings or significant changes where you alter your physical body appearance also tell us about your emotions. Your gestures that you make, whether hands or facial expressions. And then paralanguage. It's a lot of times paired with nonverbal communication, even though it is verbal, it's just not the words you're using. It's your tone, your volume, how fast you're speaking. That's your paralanguage that helps us to read meaning into the words you're using. Now, an interesting hypothesis that you want to know about is the facial feedback hypothesis. Have you ever heard the term fake it till you make it? It's one of my favorites. Because if you smile long enough, your mood's going to improve. If you frown long enough, your mood's going to change too. It's the hypothesis that by using the facial muscles to create a facial expression sends a signal to your brain that actually alters your mood to make it fit. Okay? Now, personality. Personality is your individual, consistent patterns of feeling, thinking, and behavior. So those patterns of behavior that extend over a period of time. So maybe you do something that's out of character for you and people say, well, that's just not like her. They're saying that it contradicts your personality that they're used to. The traits are those enduring characteristics that influence your behavior. So if you're generally a laid-back person, that's a trait, a characteristic that people can use to describe your personality. If you're generally a reliable person, or you're generally a outspoken person or an energetic person, those are those traits, and changes in those traits is what signals people to a change in your mood, because they know your personality overall, and this is different, whether that's good or bad. Okay? Now, one theory you need to make sure you're familiar with is the 5-factor or the Big Five model of personality. So make sure you look at table 11.2 and understand what those 5 factors are. Okay? The Barnum effect is a term that refers to people's tendency to believe in a description of their personality that really is rather general or vague. How many of you like to read your horoscopes? If you really stop and think about them, the way they're worded and the amount of vagueness in them, they could describe just about anybody. But we like to read things and then put ourselves in that position. So that's the Barnum effect. The interesting thing about personality is that your personality is not one-sided. And so different situations, without fundamentally changing who you are, different situations can cause you to behave a little bit differently or out of character. So I have a personality and I behave a certain way at work, and then I behave another way in the classroom, and then I might behave another way on the weekend. I'm not changing who I am in any of those situations. Just allowing different characteristics or different personality traits to shine, and I base that on what I decide is appropriate in a situation. So your situation can change your behavior, but it's not altering your personality. You're just highlighting different personality traits. Okay? This really comes out in the idea of leadership, which is the ability to direct or inspire other people to accomplish goals. And there are three main types of leaders that we talk about in your book: charismatic, transactional, and transformational. The charismatic leader is that outgoing, outspoken person that everybody just likes to be around because it just makes you feel good. The transactional leader is that task-focused person who really is only concerned about getting the job done and done right. And the transformational leader is more about the experience. So yes, we're going to get the job done, but I want everybody to grow and develop some new skill or become better or be happy with their work. I want them to in some way transform into a better version of themselves. And that's the transformational leader. A lot of a leader's style is related to their personality, those traits and those characteristics. Okay, so a few more concepts. One is the self-concept. We talked about this in the chapter on development. It's the beliefs you have about who you are. Self-esteem. I know we hear a lot about that. And it's just those positive feelings about yourself. And then self-actualization. This may be a new term. It's that inner motivation or drive to reach your highest potential. Of course, you determine what that highest potential is, but the theory of self-actualization is that once your physical needs are met and your emotional needs are met, and you have the things you need, then you can begin to thrive and reach your fullest potential.